Mac here on Birds 365 on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. Thank you for streaming in. I'm asking you, I'm begging you, hit that like button. Why wouldn't you hit the like? Les Bowen is joining us. Of course you have to hit that like button.
Les is great. By the way, can I say, Les, you gave me a laugh out loud moment yesterday. Someone had put, and I don't want to out them, but someone had put,
come on, out
one of the, I don't even know who it was, to be honest. So I'd have to look it up.
Neither.
Maybe Les. Yeah. Talking about a young player who is a literal chess piece on the field, and Les, being the old school great writer that he is, points out to the, if you're a literal chess piece, it's probably going to be pretty difficult to play professional football. But yeah, it gave me a laugh out loud moment. Editing might not be what it once was, but yeah, you're going to get called out on that, young writers. So,
and the thing that's fascinating about social media, John, is so a lot of people thought that was funny. There was one guy who was outraged. It wasn't the guy that wrote the piece.
Outraged, yeah.
Some guy wrote me a long screed about how his generation has redefined this word, and that its slang meaning is very different from what we old people think it means. So therefore, I am an idiot, and blah 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 blah.
There's always one. There's always one. I believe you cannot redefine words on your own. I believe.
I think it's an arduous process.
Yes, you can try, and I'd love to ask that.
My wife tries, by the way, on a daily basis.
Okay,
incorrectly uses literal.
Good to know. And I would love to ask that person who called you on the carpet glass. Can literal chess pieces make hip drop tackles? Because I think that would be very difficult.
Yeah, it would be hard for them.
The knight, maybe. Bishop never. Queen wouldn't bother. Maybe the knight could make a hip drop tackle. We had you on early last week, when free agency was just getting underway. So many moves have been made since. Of course, the league, we say Eagle-centric and the like. The overall haul, what the Eagles have gained, what the Eagles have lost, if you're putting a grade on Howie Roseman from A+ to F, and we're admitting this is a fluid grade because there are moves yet to be made. We didn't even get to the draft yet. But on this date, as we sit here on the Thursday after the Monday start of NFL free agency, 10, 11 days later, what would you say Howie grades out at right about now?
I'm kind of about a B, I guess. Haven't seen, the Barkley thing is a big deal, and a few of the other, the Huff thing is a big deal, and some of the other lower profile signings are they keep signing guys. They signed a new slot corner last night. Don't know a thing about him, but it's they're filling gaps, and it's taking care of business. I'm not I don't see that they've totally fixed everything that they had to fix, and the Hassan Reddick situation concerns me. So B is about as high as I want to go right now.
Great minds think alike. I think I gave the Eagles a B, and I like Jody. Jody has an exercise, and I like this, Les. If you say B, but you have to go up or down, so you got to go to a B- or a B+. Would you lean towards going up or down? Because I would lean going down.
Me too. Yeah, I would lean going down. I just
B-.
I haven't seen a difference-making signing at at linebacker or safety, really. I mean, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, it's good to have him back, but I would have rather had, the Giants guy, Xavier McKinney. I would have rather, linebacker, I would have rather had like a Patrick Queen type linebacker. I
am starting to warm up. This will probably surprise Jody a little bit after getting to meet Devin White. I am starting to warm up on that, saying, well, maybe that's worth a swing. It's a lottery ticket. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
It's not Patrick Queen.
I love Devin White's talent. I just, maybe it's coaching, but the thing that happened was he was in a really good defense, and they felt he never developed, that he was the same, that he came out as a really aggressive guy right out of college who didn't really know what he was doing, but was all over the place and had a nose for the ball and stuff. And 4 years later, he was the same guy. He hadn't developed any real nuance or, you know, any.
Well, there's plenty of red flags. Don't get me wrong. And anytime you're the number 5 pick in the draft and you get second contract and you get $4 million, essentially, they run it as 7.5, but those are all incentives. That's not a good sign. However, I will say we'll probably learn down when we get to talk to Howie a little bit behind the scenes. They probably were in on other linebackers, didn't get them. And at this stage, why not take a shot on the talent, and maybe Vic Fangio can fix him and get him up to speed. Sure. From that standpoint, he does seem like a very smart kid. One issue though, he's always worn the green dot, which I didn't know. I assumed Levante David had to, because he's the veteran. No, he had the green dot from day one. Nakobe Dean has a green dot here, so we'll have to see how that kind of works out. It is a concern, but I like it a little bit more after he spoke. He seems like a bright kid. He was injured last year, injured his foot, ironically, against the Eagles in week 3, and he played through it. I like that. But yeah, the film is not great. I'm trying to look for positives. It's rare I do that, Les.
Here's the reason why I'm not buying, John. If you're going to give me Bryce Huff is an ascending player, that you shut out 17
you
million.
You really don't like that guy, do you, Joe?
Well, no, I'm making a comp between 2 Eagle signings.
Yeah.
If you're spending like just below top drawer money for that position on a guy who's had one really good season, you're betting on progression. You're betting on upside. You're betting on what way he's trending. Okay, if you're going to put money on trending up, how do you justify trending down? Because that's all Devin White has done his entire career. He's gotten worse every single year for 5 years in Tampa. Fangio's just going to come in and wave a magic wand and get him back to that 5th overall draft pick in the class of 2019.
He is a defensive savior, Vic Fangio, evidently.
And they're not paying much money for this, you know. And I don't think they're pinning their whole defensive strategy on the development of Devin White. But, you know, there is a point there, Jody, that it's a good point. A lot of these signings are kind of like, well, this could work out. You know, I mean, it's not slam dunk. But I'm not – free agency has never been – I still bear the scars of 2011. Winning free agency has never been something that gets me too excited.
No.
You can every now and then you get a Malcolm Jenkins here and there, but
Brandon Brooks.
Of the time it's fool's gold. You know, I don't try to. The teams that make the biggest splashes in free agency are very rarely the teams you see in the Super Bowl the next year. You know, we'll see. You know, they're plugging along. They've done some good things. The Barkley thing, which I'm still not as excited about that as the fan base is. I think there's a lot of tweaking the Giants. The idea of that, the whole thing about his daughter saying, does this mean we're going to win now? I think the fans just love that kind of stuff.
His daughter is the star already. She's very cute. For those who don't know, the Eagles released a video of Saquon Barkley's first 24 hours with the team. And it was very interesting, and because we don't get to see as much as we used to inside the NovaCare complex last. So they showed us a quick glimpse of Howie Roseman's office, and there was a quote on the wall, and the quote was, and I give Zach credit. Zach is very attentive as well, and Zach's the most attentive person, Zach Berman, on the beat. So the quote was, "Producing talented players year in and year out is not a luxury. it's a necessity. Now, Zach did the extra legwork. He found out that is a quote from Theo Epstein.
Yeah.
Obviously the great baseball GM who think about him, you know, he stopped 2 curses. So, you know, he's done one heck of a job, and that was a quote from him. Now, a couple things. I found it ironic that this is a Bark. Now, you know, they're showing Barkley and showing this quote. They're not producing Saquon Barkley. They're not producing Bryce Huff. They're not producing C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Your point to free agency. These are all talented players. But to get to Howie's quote that he's got up there, are they producing talented players year in and year out enough with their younger guys? Do you think they're doing that at this point, Les?
Well, certainly not. I mean, well, a lot depends on what we see from people like Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter this year. But they had a huge problem there right around the time of the Super Bowl. They had some drafts that really, you know, didn't move the needle very much. You know, everybody knows they drafted Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson. You know, they've made some very good. You know, they've got they got Mailata in the 7th round, but in the higher rounds, they don't tend to do nearly as well. And they've had high picks these last several years too. You know, certainly they have not been the best drafting team in the NFL over this period. They've had a lot of different personnel people. You know, Andy Weidel is back in Pittsburgh now. Joe Douglas is the GM of the Jets. You know, they haven't had a lot of stability in the personnel operation. And, you know, if they get praised every year at draft time, when the draft is over, it's like, oh yeah, look, they got so-and-so. What a genius thing this was.
Well, last year, Nolan Smith, I think, in fact, I got a quote. It was like, are you kidding me? I got a quote on draft night. It was actually the next day from a personnel executive, because they got Carter and Nolan Smith, and everybody around the league is like, and Carter, don't get me wrong, I mean, he showed tremendous upside, and it was disappointing that he faltered a little bit down the stretch, but I think everybody sees the talent. Nolan Smith, we didn't see much of anything.
No.
Yeah.
He looked like Marcus Smith. You know, I mean,
now that's
that guy needs about 20 pounds of muscle, you know. The idea that I think I said this on this, I don't want to repeat myself too much, but the idea that every undersized pass rusher is Hassan Reddick.
Yeah, I know.
Is like in the late 80s when I used to follow the NBA pretty closely, and every fat undersized forward coming out of college was Charles Barkley.
Charles, yeah.
No.
No, doesn't work that way. And here's where I'll buy what both you guys are saying to a point. But even it goes to a point, and then to me it drops off. Like, if the Eagles sign an undrafted guy, or they pick up a free agent and he's here for a couple of years and he comes and goes, and we just we moved on from him. But God forbid we move on from a 5th round draft pick because we actually used the draft. If you've been with the team 3 years, your draft status goes out the window for me. It doesn't matter anymore. You had 3 years to get out of him what you had to get out of him. Either you did or you didn't. It doesn't matter whether you drafted him or signed him as an undrafted free agent or claimed him off another team as a free agent. If you got now, there are guys that go in and out 1 year. That's all their bodies and stuff like that. If you spend more than 1 year, you spend 2 years with the team, you're an Eagle. And we evaluate you on whether you were a good Eagle or a bad Eagle, whether it was a smart move by Howie to pick you up or not. I just get tired of people going, oh, he was a draft pick. Oh, he wasn't a draft pick. When you've been there 2 years, you're an Eagle, and you should be evaluated that way, not by how you were acquired.
Well, certainly you get evaluated that way when it comes to playing time. I don't agree with, you know, you have to play a guy because he was a high draft pick or anything like that. But if you have a high draft pick, you want to retain, you know, you want to get the most out of those cheap years that you have and maybe get to a second contract, you know, with a guy that you know very much with much more depth than you know somebody coming to you from somewhere else. You you know, your high picks, you want them to be
well,
around. You want them to
let's
be bulwarks of your franchise. You know, you don't want just a year or 2 or 3 out of a first round pick.
True.
You want that guy to be here 6 years from now and be a building block of your team.
And to be fair to the Eagles,
teams have done it anyway, mostly.
To Jody's point, and I agree with Jody's point, but the Eagles are far from the only team that acts like that. I mean, everybody, we're just talking about Devin White. If Devin White was a 5th round pick, do you think he gets chance after chance after chance after chance in Tampa Bay? No, he got chance after chance because he was the number 5 overall pick, and they don't want to admit the mistake.
By a GM who won the Super Bowl and, you know, is very well regarded and used to work at NovaCare, by the way. We're talking about NovaCare turnover. You know, I mean, 5th overall pick, that's a little bit of egg on their face, frankly, that he turned out the way he did. But, you know, guys move around and things change. I think that's the best thing you can say about Devin White.
If you talk to the, you know, again, because it's such a good example, TJ Edwards, who the Eagles fined, as an undrafted kid, not fined because he was a great college player. He was second for the Butkus Award, but he ran, I believe, a 4.87, and that was it. As far as the NFL said, all right, we can't draft this kid. Throw the film out. He can't run. I always say, getting to know TJ over the years, he remade his body. So that's probably the only day in his life he ran a 4.87. He probably had a bad day. People, you know, we all have bad days. We wake up, we're not at our best, and he probably had a bad day. And they held it against him, but he slowly developed into a really good player. And he was really good here at the end, and he was really good in Chicago last year, undrafted kid, as opposed to Devin White, who had one run towards the Super Bowl and basically performed poorly every other time. But the league as a whole, I mean, that's where, like, it's not just fans, it's not just media. The league looks at pedigree and values it. And
athleticism, you know, I mean, if you Devin White's a great athlete, you know, and he nobody, when Tampa drafted him 5th overall, nobody said, "Oh, what the hell are they doing?" You know, he's kind of Tampa's Derek Barnett. You know, Derek Barnett had a good rookie year and was in the Super Bowl and made a play in the Super Bowl, but you know, after that, not as much.
And my point is, and if John's heard me say this once, he's heard me say it 100 times. I agree with pedigree to a point. And then pedigree has got to go out the window. Like I just finished 2 years. If you've been somewhere 2 years, your pedigree goes out the window. What you've actually done on the football field for a 2-year period should well outweigh where you were picked or how you were obtained or what they gave up to get you. Tell me what the guy did on the field, and I'll tell you where he's at in his career rather than, but he was a X-round draft pick. At some point, pedigree's got to stop.
Sure. You're looking at, the only thing I'd say is you're right, but you're looking at, okay, here's a guy who's an elite athlete. Maybe in a different situation, we can still make use of that, you know, but we'll see.
All right, let's talk hip drop tackles, Les. Hip drop. Everybody hates this. They started, and they're going to pass it. I mean, there's no question. The league wants. They might hold off to May if the coaches complain enough down at the owners' meeting next week. But it's going to pass. And I saw Slay was out there on social media immediately. Rodney McLeod, our old buddy, was out there. Kobe Dean, the NFLPA, said, "What are you doing? What is this? Why? Why is the league so intent on doing stuff like this?" Which is, and Jody and I were talking about it. I don't know if you heard in the green room, Les, but this is going to make the officials' job even harder.
Oh yeah,
and everybody's going to complain. And
see, that's my biggest thing here. I understand that this causes some injuries, and you know it's not ideal, but my problem, the reason the game is so poorly officiated now is that they've made things so complicated and so nuanced and so
over legislated.
Yeah,
over legislated.
The officials are overwhelmed with stuff they've got to look at. You know, adding this in there is just going to be, you can't in real time discern this easily. It's I don't understand why, if I were the league and I were worried about this, I would get players and agents together and talk about, you know, okay, here's a situation where this happened. What could have been done differently? And if the players say, you know, it's bad, but there's no way to get around it really, I would give up. I don't know who with the league has decided that this is, you know, a front page issue. It's
they
not
made it a front
thing.
page issue.
It doesn't cause CTE.
Les, I didn't even know what a hip drop tackle was when they started talking about it and labeling
Me
it.
neither. Me neither. Yeah.
And how long have we been covering this stinking game? I didn't even know what they were talking about. They made it up.
Well, there's been so much legislation against other kinds of tackles that I think you're seeing it more than maybe you used to see it.
Well, Mark Andrews got hurt. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't dive at a guy's knees and you can't smack him in the head anymore. You know, but at some point, there's things that you just can't change that are bad. You know, I mean, that's the thing that the NFL grapples with constantly about football. It's
a physical sport where people are going to get injured. I think we can all stipulate
along the lines that you're talking about.
I think the players stipulate to that.
Creating the name of hip drop tackle. Yeah. Guys used to be pulled down by the back of their jersey, and then it became a horse collar tackle.
Right.
And I understood what it meant by horse collar tackle, but I'd never thought that somebody just came up with that name at one point.
Well, you know,
hey, we can penalize them for this.
Terrell Owens, that was the injury that was the first time I heard it called that. And it took a long time, but that was the injury that started us down the path to getting that outlawed. You know, everybody remembers that. T.O. in Philadelphia.
And it sounds like you and I and John all agree. Here's the problem with it. It's going to be completely subjective. It's not like, at least the horse collar tackle, you can see. You get your hand in behind either the jersey or the shoulder pad, you pull it out, boom. He did it. Whether it should or shouldn't be a penalty, we can all argue about that. But we don't argue, is it actually a horse collar tackle? We can see and know what a horse collar tackle is. I'm not going to be able to judge on the fly, full speed. Did he get his hips down ahead of time? Pulled the guy to the ground. It's going to be a completely subjective call. And the referee who throws the flag on that is going to be so second guessed. There's going to be booing in the stands. There's going to be announcers going, that's a bad call. The NFL, which tries to protect its referees as best they can, at least verbally, then put something like this in to just make their job that much more difficult and make the spotlight on them that much greater. I think it's just dumb. Don't know why to do it.
It's going to be a disaster. There's already too much stuff like that in the game that nobody knows. You know, nobody knows how much contact downfield is admissible for a pass receiver and a defender. You see guys, you know, do things that in one game it's pass interference, in another game it's just two guys, you know, playing football. You know, it's subjective anyway.
I hate to be a conspiracy guy, but I'm going to put on the tinfoil hat right here. I mean, gambling is now so immersed in sports. We've already seen scandals when college basketball. There's an emerging one locally, maybe. We've seen it in the past. In you know, Ohtani in baseball, he's mixed up with some nonsense.
I was just going to say that happened last night.
Yeah,
I know we're not talking baseball here, but holy moly, that's I was every now and then I look at my phone and I say, well, I'm glad I don't cover that team. And last night it was, I'm glad I'm not a Dodgers beat reporter tonight. They're in Korea.
It's going to break. It might as well let it break in Seoul where nobody can talk to anybody.
What's going on back home now? We're in Korea. What the hell?
My point, my override, how easy would it be to call a 15-yard penalty to shift the moment? I mean, this is just like who advises Roger Goodell when it comes to this?
That's my question. Whose idea is this? Who's going to stand
I don't
up
think
and
it's Goodell. I think it's the coaches. I think the coaches are worried about injuries.
I don't
You think it's Goodell? I don't think. And
well, no,
you really think Goodell sits there, or do you think he's getting direction?
No, I said who advises Roger Goodell. I don't think it's Roger Goodell. But it's somebody in the league office. Nobody wants this. The players don't want it. Coaches don't want it. They might not even pass it next week because the coaches are going to complain so much.
Yeah.
But they will pass it in May when the coaches aren't there. If
so
they have
the owners, why would the owners do it?
I don't know. Be a good thing to ask Jeffrey Lurie in Orlando.
My assumption is always potential legal indemnification later on. With the concussion issue, that's the reason for all the
are they facing that with orthopedic injuries? I mean,
I don't think they are.
Yeah,
I don't think they are. And boy, at some point we're going to have to come together as a society and say, if we want to continue to play professional football, we have to all get together and stipulate, guess what? It's not good for you.
Right.
If you want to play this game, but you're going to get paid very well for a short period of time. If you're in, sign the waiver. If you're out, go do something else. We got to get to that point as a society.
Well,
I think
I'm sort of with you there, but I'm also, you don't just become totally callous and say, let's have people kill each other for our enjoyment if they know what they're getting into. You do what you can to make the game safer. I just don't think this is a reasonable thing to do. The concussion stuff, they need to do everything they possibly can. You can't have, 45-year-old guys who don't know who their children are, and stuff.
That's a more difficult discussion because 25-year-olds think a heck of a lot differently than you mentioned.
Yes.
55-year-olds.
Yeah, this stuff about they know what they're getting into with that. I've talked to a bunch of these guys. When you're 25 years old, the idea of being 45 or 50 or 60 is like flying to the moon.
No, I agree with that. But that's cognitive. That to me is a little bit different. If you're
absolutely
getting torn ACL,
absolutely,
yes, it ain't good. Torn Achilles, none of that is good. Orthopedic, you could be limping around, but that's a little bit different from not being able to find your car keys. Because
absolutely, I agree. Yes,
that's why this is bothering me. The other new rule that they're contemplating, and it isn't near done, but seems to be leaning that way, is a new kickoff rule that they'll adopt from the XFL, which I don't completely understand. I've read it. Let me start with this question. Watch a lot of XFL this past year, Les, did you? Nor did I. Good. Neither did John or I. So I've only seen highlights or whatever they want to cut up and show me to try and make a point. It sounds like they're trying to bring the kickoff back, but it's going to be more like a short field kickoff that they'll start within 10 yards of each other, and only the guy who's receiving it and the kicker will be deep on the two ends, and then everybody else is going to meet in the middle. It sounds interesting, but I don't know how exciting it's going to be. But as best I can grasp it, Les, it's going to be an added importance on both the kicker and the return guy. Because the kicker is not going to want to kick the ball out of the back of the end zone. You're going to be given a chance to have your defense actually make a play and keep them short of the 35-yard line. And the receiver, there's no more fair catches. You have to either make a play on the ball and bring it out of the end zone, or pray that the ball bounces out of the end zone. Because if you don't decide to play it, you're just going to let it bounce because you can't fair catch. You only can get a touchback. It's intriguing to me how much added value is there going to be on the kicker, not for his massive leg to be able to kick it through the uprights and impress people, but drop it down somewhere is to make it difficult to play? And will there be a new added influence by a kick returner? Because the way I'm seeing this happen, I think that could become an important position for somebody. Will kick returning and the specialty of being a good kick returner return to the game?
You know, I have to confess, I haven't looked at this at all. I understand what you're saying, and I agree with you. It's going to be a big change, and I hope they've really, gamed it out and they understand all the things that are going to happen that you don't anticipate happening. If the ball hits some other guy or something, I don't know. But I don't know that they have to do anything. I mean, most kickoffs now go out of the end zone. It's kind of a dead
they're going to try and change that. That will not be the case going forward.
It's not always the case, and strategically, teams don't always do that. I don't know. I think it's interesting. I don't really have an opinion on it yet.
Sadly, I did watch a little XFL football. It is better than what the NFL does. I will say that. All right. They're trying to limit those high-speed collisions. So basically what they're doing is the coverage guys and the blockers line up really close to each other. And they can't move until the returner catches the football. So in theory, you limit those high-speed collisions. And it brings the kickoff back in the game, and the fact that I think it would be more susceptible for having a punt returner-like returner than the old-school kickoff returner, because I don't think long speed is going to be
right. It's going to be niftiness. Yeah, exactly.
So I think it's better than what the NFL does, which is basically just start. You might as well ban it and just start, and at least until late in the season, where there would be maybe some bad weather games and you couldn't get it out of the end zone. So I applaud them for that one, for at least trying, because at one time, the kickoff return was one of the most exciting plays in an NFL game.
That is true.
Chip Kelly lost the game because he wouldn't kick the ball to Cordero Patterson, who I always say is the best kick returner I've ever seen. He wouldn't kick it to him. The Eagles lost the game because they just kept giving up field position.
I remember.
It was very impactful, and they completely took it out of the game. So I guess I'd like the fact that they're trying to figure out a way, and it's very unlike the NFL to admit another league had a better idea, and they did.
Yeah. That's a good point, John. That's a very good point. My main problem with both punt and kickoff plays is when you have a return in either situation, there's going to be a flag.
Well,
it's almost automatic. In fact, almost every punt play, whether there's a return or not, somebody manages to do something. We were talking a minute ago about all the different rules. Somebody manages to do something that was against the rules.
And I'll give you very good speculation on why that's the case. Less practice. The NFL collectively bargained away practice time, and coaches love to say, and we work on all three phases of the game. You work on special teams for 20 minutes. Come on, let's not kid ourselves. You only got so much time. You're going to be working from the line of scrimmage. The guys just don't get enough practice in, so all they have to do is make a procedural mistake. Boom, out comes the flag. Why would you make a procedural? Because you didn't put any time in practicing it. That's why you see flags on every single punt this past season in the NFL. Nobody practices special teams anymore.
Good point. Yes.
Jody brought up Zach Baun. We haven't talked a lot about Zach Baun, who was one of the Eagles signings in free agency. Spun as a good special teams player. And I think Jody asked me the question, could he be the next Ike Reese? And I said no. And I don't know anything about Zach Baun, but I said no because special teams is not as impactful as it was when.
But it might be if they institute this new kickoff.
That's my point. So maybe the
also,
Eagles
does he have a good radio voice? That would be.
Yeah. But maybe it is going to. Maybe it is going to become more important, and the Eagles are trying to get ahead of the curve. So
could be.
Will Zach Bond be the afternoon drive host on WIP in 2040?
You never know.
We're going to have to wait and see how that one plays out.
And fend off A.J. Brown trade rumors. Poor Ike Reese.
AJ, well, hey, we haven't brought up A.J. Brown in weeks. What do you think he's doing himself right now, guys? AJ getting ready for the season. AJ enjoying life. AJ second guessing anybody.
AJ's working out. I just saw videos down in Florida. Yeah, AJ doesn't look like AJ because he doesn't work at it.
He's chiseled. He's quite a
he's already working out. So, and he had the knee injury to end the season. But since I brought up AJ, I guess we'll talk about AJ. I think it's funny because WIP did what they always do. Nothing wrong with it. They throw out a flippant poll and say, would you trade AJ Brown? I don't know exactly what it was. Jody, you might know better. Something about trading
AJ Brown for the Denver cornerback. So
okay.
Would you trade AJ Brown for Patrick Surtain?
And I'm sure they didn't look at the cap ramifications. Right. I'm sure it was some intern, and there's just no way that you could trade AJ Brown pre-June 1st. And I had brought up at the time, that's important because if you want to trade somebody like AJ Brown, you don't want to wait for draft capital next year. You want it in April. And you certainly don't want to lose a bunch of cap space. Now they can do it post June 1st and actually gain some cap space. Now, again, he's a big budget player.
Why would they trade AJ Brown?
Well,
their best football player.
He's a big budget player. I'm going somewhere. So maybe most teams budget by that point, and they don't have room for a $25 million player, as you know, Les. They budget for free agency and the draft, and then they're ready to go. So you're not going to add a $25 million player usually. But there seems to be some kind of self-fulfilling prophecy to this. Kay Adams brought it up on her show with AJ, and AJ's like, what are you talking about? Making it out to be like it's a real rumor. And then AJ himself calls up WIP and says, I don't want to be traded, but it is a business. And all of a sudden, little birdie tells me, guess who called the Eagles? The New England Patriots, who've been looking for a desperate receiver. They tried to get Calvin Ridley. And they were going to go very high to try to get Calvin Ridley. They're probably going to get a new quarterback. You'd want to get a big-time piece next to a new quarterback in theory. They might be a team that calls post June 1st and says, what's going on? What do you think? What, maybe? No, I see you shaking your head.
What do they have that you would get post June 1st that would make this
draft capital next year? Draft capital.
Are you going to play this season or just sort of sit it out?
Yeah.
Well, that's the point. That's the point.
Is Jalen Hurts going to get younger, or are all these other players?
Okay, I'm going to throw it. I'm going to throw a couple extra curveballs in the coming weeks. I don't know when, but the coming weeks, Justin Jefferson and maybe Jamar Chase are going to reset the wide receiver market. And the old adage, rising tide lifts all boats. That means Devontae Smith's going to get more expensive. Mm-hmm. All of this factors into it. It's not about just immediacy with Howie Roseman. He knows at some point he's got to extend Devontae Smith. You probably can't pay Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown at the level they are. By the way, when A.J. sees what Justin Jefferson's going to get, he's going to want more money. Am I completely crazy for bringing? I evidently both think I am, but
yeah,
I don't think you're completely crazy. But if I'm a GM, I don't try to outsmart myself, and this smacks to me of trying to outsmart yourself. You've got a great player. He's
always the best player on the team.
Big part of what you do. There's no compelling need to mess with that. There really isn't. Yeah, there was a lot of Sturm and Drang last year, as there always is. Somebody pointed this out last night when there was a report about or a speculation about the Hurts-Sirianni relationship. When things happen like the second half of last season, nobody's happy with anybody. Yeah. Nobody likes anybody. You know, there's nothing going on with A.J. Brown that makes me even consider, unless the Patriots want to trade for their pick this year. I know there's just, you don't need to go there. There's plenty of other things you can do that you're looking too far into the
future,
into the looking glass there.
That lends it quite well to the final question we have for you today, Les. Kenny Pickett or Justin Fields? Both were traded within hours of each other. Eagles got one. The Bears sent Justin Fields to Pittsburgh. Assuming that the Eagles at least inquired about Justin Fields, don't know how interested they were, what kind of offer they made, but we know what they gave up for Pickett, and we know what Fields went with. Looking at those two players, pick one of the two. Either say Eagles were right to make the deal for Pickett, or the Eagles are wrong. They should have been more attentive to Justin Fields. And give us the main reason. Main reason. There's 6 reasons on both sides, but the main reason why you would pick Pickett over Fields and Fields over Pickett.
Well, there's a very good piece about this on lesbowensjohn.com.
Nice.
At the moment. But, I don't have a problem. Initially, I made fun of the acquisition of Kenny Pickett.
Small hands.
Because he really didn't have much of a year in Pittsburgh, and the picture that was being painted of him in the Pittsburgh media was of this delusional guy who didn't want to dress for the final game and doesn't want to compete with Russell Wilson. And I was, at first glance, you look at that and think, how's he going to like backing up Jalen Hurts? But there's a lot more to the story as I've looked into it. The Fields thing, it's apples and oranges. Fields is a much better athlete. He's not a better passer. You can look up all the advanced metrics you want. Pickett grades out better as a passer than Justin Fields does. And crucially, what I've been able to satisfy myself with is Pickett wants to be here in this role. He understands that what happened last year was a disaster for him. Nobody wanted him as their starter this year. He can come here, learn under Kellen Moore. I think he's probably secretly got his fingers crossed that Jalen Hurts gets injured and Kenny Pickett gets a chance to throw the ball to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert, which he didn't have in Pittsburgh. And suddenly he's a big deal again. Justin Fields has no reason. A lot of people a month ago were still arguing that Justin Fields was an ascending young franchise quarterback in the NFL and that the Bears should do something other than draft a quarterback this year.
Yeah. Especially Bears fans. Bears fans love him.
And Justin Fields doesn't want to come somewhere and be a backup for a year. He'll compete and maybe win the job in Pittsburgh. Russell Wilson is 34 and has bounced around a little bit here lately. We don't know. The Bears, there was a lot of agent spin that the Bears had turned down much better offers. I always take that with a grain of salt because it was really a much better offer than you screwed yourself and your fan base.
I don't buy that, Brian Pohl.
I've heard that
trading him to Pittsburgh where he wanted to go.
Yeah.
That's malarkey.
You guys might remember Larry Brown. Remember Larry Hughes? The old Sixer. Larry Brown evidently promised Larry Hughes and his family that the Sixers were going to take him in the draft. And ultimately, they did. But the problem was Paul Pierce dropped out of nowhere.
Pierce, right.
And the Sixers should have drafted Paul Pierce. And Larry Brown was true to his word and said, well, I promised this kid. So it's happened, but that's the only time I can think of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think Pittsburgh is a better situation for Justin Fields in terms of starting this season, perhaps.
Sure.
I think I don't know that Chicago wanted to trade him to the Eagles. I just think, Pickett, the difference between them is not as immense as some fans.
No, plus you know what else, Les? You're getting an extra year cost effective. You get
that's a big part of this.
Here's where I'm throwing a flag on both you guys, specifically you, Bowen, because you just said about A.J. Brown. Why would you trade your best player? Which I agree with. Why would you take a lesser player? Kenny Pickett is a lesser player than Justin Fields. The one extra year of cost-effective backup quarterback. I'm sorry. I rank give me the better player over an extra year of cheap backup quarterback. It just lays over it. It's more important. And the Eagles missed out on an opportunity.
Yeah, but I'm going to defend
the flat-out best player, better player.
There's a big difference. There's a big difference between A.J. Brown's superstar and Kenny Pickett. The
better of two backup quarterbacks. Yeah, that's a little different of a. And frankly, if you look back, I went back and looked at the stats from Pickett's rookie year, not this last disastrous year where he was playing with an ankle injury and eventually had to have tightrope surgery and apparently tried to rush his return so he could get back in the lineup. And then they said, no, thanks. The rookie year, he did some really good things. He wasn't everything you'd want in a franchise quarterback, but he showed a lot of promise that rookie year. He did some very nice things. He had some ratings that were, under pressure, his ability to make plays out of sequence. Just because last year was a disaster doesn't mean he has no talent whatsoever. And you're looking at a backup quarterback. You're looking at fit with a backup. You're not looking at who has the most talent always. You're looking at fit and how someone will respond to a situation. And, I just think, Pickett's probably a better fit.
Who's going to be in Jalen Hurts? If you're worried about fit, like they were this year when they signed Mariota, that didn't really work. But if you're worried about that, you're of course going to take Fields over Pickett. Pickett is more of a pocket quarterback. Fields is more of a Jalen make something up on the run kind of quarterback. If you're looking at fit, then it's no question it's Fields.
I think Les is talking about fit, not in the scheme, fit in your place on the team. I think that's what he's talking about.
And in your quarterback room and in your, the fan base and all that stuff, I think Fields would be very, very much like drafting Jalen Hurts when Carson Wentz just signed a big contract. I just don't.
We're worried about Jalen.
I don't need to do that. I don't see what the big problem was with Mariota as a backup last year.
I brought up we
did you lose any games because Marcus Mariota was your backup last year?
Because he didn't play. Yeah. He didn't have the chance to lose any games.
We got to let Les go. But I got a story. I was talking to Grant Paulson about RG3 and Kirk Cousins, and I always thought that was smart, man. You draft, and people forget RG3 had a great rookie season, but then he got hurt.
Yes.
And they had Kirk Cousins, and Kirk Cousins is still playing and getting $200 million contracts. And I said, boy, that's smart. Why don't more teams do that? If they need a quarterback, take a couple swings. And Grant brought up, but it was a disaster behind the scenes. RG3 didn't like it. And I said, you know what? You're right. It doesn't happen in a vacuum. It makes sense in a vacuum, but personalities come into it. Bits come into it. Guys aren't happy. Yeah. A lot of fit means a lot.
Then let's discuss fit for a second. I know we kept lasting a long time.
That's all right.
What did Justin Fields do that made you believe that he'd be an issue in someone else's locker room?
Oh, I just think he very much wants to start this season. And I think he comes into
not that he's a bad guy.
With that idea. Even Adam Schefter threw that out, I think, yesterday. Right. That he could end up being the starter.
And Kenny Pickett handled himself well in his press conference the other day.
Yeah.
Did he say at any point, I'm a backup and I know I'm a backup and I'm
No. But I think he knows he needs
to take a year. Why would Fields be any worse than Pickett as far as fit goes in a quarterback room?
Well, you just said, you know, Fields has a much better resume at this moment. Fields has a much better resume at this moment as a starter, and he.
By the way, I don't even think that's true. but I mean,
yeah, okay.
A lot of it isn't his fault. I've said, because I like Justin Fields coming out of the.
Me too. Ohio State.
College,
yes.
Yeah. I liked him a lot. I think Chicago ruined him. I'm very upper. I mean, that happens. I saw it with David Carr. I mean, David Carr is a punchline now, and people make fun of Houston. He's a very talented player who got sacked, I don't know, 75 times and became so skittish. Teams and bits ruin quarterbacks, and I think the Chicago Bears ruined Justin Fields. I firmly believe that, and that's why I'd rather have Kenny Pickett, because I think Justin Fields at this point is probably unsalvageable because they ruined him to such a degree.
I don't know. That's an interesting point, but I do think Fields very much is vying to be a starting quarterback this season. I think Pickett pretty much understands that this is a good situation for him to sort of rebuild his. He thinks the Eagles are going to be a good team. He's hoping he gets a few starts in there to show that he's really a quarterback, and he resets after that, I think.
So Fields is unsalvageable after the mess that was Chicago, but Kenny Pickett, he'll bounce right back after spending a year with Matt Canada.
I'll tell you what, I think people do not realize Kenny Pickett managed to win games in Pittsburgh.
He did.
He managed to win games
with an offensive coordinator who got fired in the middle of the season, and all that stuff.
Kenny Pickett should be sending thank you notes to TJ
I'm not his
Watt
agent, but I don't think
Minka
it's the worst thing in the world. I really
Mike
don't.
Tomlin, the Pittsburgh won games.
Look, they did win games with their defense and their running game. But as a quarterback, you can lose games. Even if those guys get you in a position, you can make big mistakes to lose games. That's what Justin Fields did in Chicago. He just lost and lost and lost and lost and lost and kept losing.
All right, so and I know we've kept way over. Last one less. Here's the deal. You're Howie Roseman, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Put number of years left. 1 year fit. Backup quarterback, Philadelphia Eagles. Put the extra year aside. You've got your choice. Same cost. Justin Fields or Kenny Pickett for the Philadelphia Eagles next year. You taking Kenny Pickett because of fit? Because you think he's going to be a better fit in the quarterback room, or are you taking a better player?
Does Fields want to be here for that situation? I mean,
Fields is Fields. Fields' attitude is Fields' attitude. Pickett's attitude is Pickett's attitude.
At that position, I don't think you can do that. I think a quarterback, if you're going to get a quarterback, he has to be somebody who wants to be your guy. I just don't think you do it that way. It's not like a kick returner or something. I just think you don't want a quarterback who doesn't want to be on your team.
Yeah, you and I see it differently. Les, always a pleasure, buddy. We appreciate you jumping on. Thanks for jumping on twice.
Thanks. Sorry we kept you so late, but you're too engaging.
All right. I'm not doing anything.
At Les Bowen, X, Twitter.
Les, we promise not to call for at least 2 weeks. We love having you on the show, so we're going to keep calling, but we'll give you at least a 2-week break, big guy. Okay?
Call anytime.
Thanks, Les. Appreciate it.
Les Bowen Johns. His website, where he said he just had an article that he put up about Kenny Pickett. He's more of a Pickett guy like Johnny Mack. I'm on in. Kenny Pickett's fine. Fine signing. Fine.
By the way, I don't have any problem.
There was a better one to be made, and Justin Fields was out there, and the Eagles passed on.
I don't have any problem with your thought process. You think Justin Fields is a better player. I don't. I think Chicago ruined him. I'm very honest about that. I think they ruined him as a player and a prospect, and it's a shame.
Did he not play better in the last 4 or 5 games of the year? Did you not see him trending up over the course of the season, John?
Look, he's always been a phenomenal athlete. He's always been able to make plays, something out of nothing, and that won't leave him. But the processing, and I saw him live, and I made the joke, and it was probably too cruel. He processes with a sundial. Forget about a clock. I mean, it just takes him forever. He doesn't trust what he sees, and he doesn't trust what he sees because he's gotten terrible coaching and he was in a terrible situation. Can somebody rescue him? Perhaps. I'm not saying it's impossible, but looking at other high-level quarterbacks who've been in similar situations, they usually don't turn it around.
Well, we're looking at Pickett against Fields. What some other high-level quarterback did or didn't do was kind of irrelevant to me, but he did win 4 of his last 6 games last year. So your continued argument is, well, the bad quarterbacks can find ways to lose games for you. He won 4 out of his last 6 last year. He's absolutely trending in the right direction.
Why is a 6-game sample size better than a 24-game sample size, or even that's Pickett's, or even 38, which is Fields? And the 38-game sample size with Fields is pretty stinking ugly.
I get that. I'm making my argument on the most recent direction. Kenny Pickett going backwards, Justin Fields playing better and improving. I take the improving player, plain and simple. Pretty easy from my evaluative standpoint. All right, quick timeout, come back. Still got plenty to go here on Birds 365, but not until I tell you guys about an outstanding chance for you to save some really good money on your car insurance. Birds fans, here's your chance to save up to 40%. That's a pretty good savings on your car insurance. Do it right now with one of JAKIB Sports' great partners. Here's what you need to do. Call managing partner Jim or Fran and tell them you're a friend of both JAKIB Sports and Birds 365.
Hi, I'm Jim Muehlbronner, managing partner at Del Val Insurance Group. Give us a call. We're a local, knowledgeable agency, not an 800 number. Go Birds!